Conversations. Thank you for keeping it here with us. We're going to get into one with retired politician, activist, journalist Koigi, who is in Nakuru. We'll be joining him by live link, and he'll have this conversation with us. And as we set that up in just a minute, some of our conversation continues because we will have a conversation from the Situation Room to Nakuru County. And so that happens in just a short while. In the meantime, we continue this conversation. We had said we were going to have an opportunity for Kenyans to speak to us in terms of, for people to speak to us about what they feel, in terms of what position or what direction this conversation is going, then before we're able to make a connection with him. So, to hear from you, what position or what direction do you feel that this is all going? And you can call us this morning on 0732142650. That's 0732142650. Just before we get an opportunity to be able to talk with Koigi. We'll do this with you this morning. And as we get to that place where the political sphere seems to be changing, and does it seem as though the politicians have a handle on all of this? Everybody's talked about the fact that Raila Odinga gone, but will his legacy live on, and how will that live on? So we'll take a few calls from you, 0732 142 650, 0732 142 650. And so even as the political sphere seems to take on a different shape, do you really think that we're going to see people who will step out from their positions where they may have been shepherded or led or guided and actually take this thing by the horns and move with it?
The next few days will be really critical in how that then will get to happen, because for a very long time it's been said that almost everyone within ODM has always hung on Raila Odinga's coat. But now that he's not there, then how will these very same politicians get out there and show us what they're made of, what the metal that they are in terms of speaking to the Mwananchi and securing their positions and fighting for what they believe in, including maintaining Raila Odinga's legacy. So the next few days will be critical. In fact, today, we will see how that will pan out within the party. Yep,
there will be a meeting. But then my directions keeps veering back to, is it about people who will take on particular positions, who will lead, guide, or is it about people who are actually going to come and bring the dreams or the needs, the desires of Kenya's people to reality? That to ensure that, yes, where you've made progress, that progress continues. Or where you've done nothing, things are established to ensure that people who live within this nation state that is Kenya are actually living what a nation was meant to do and meant to be. Have you become comfortable whereby you say, well, at least, schools are open, at least there is a help. Can we actually get to the place where excellence is demanded of leaders at all points?
Ndu, that speaks to the current leaders that we have in office, including those who are outside but still have influence, and all that boils down to one document. I always talk about it, the Constitution. If we all just decide to play by the rule of the law, decide to implement the Constitution as expected, that when we pass budgets, we stick to that budget and live by it. When you talk about capitation, members of parliament passed these budgets in the National Assembly, but what then do they do to ensure that what it is they passed gets to the Mwananchi as expected? Once we get all these leaders, everyone playing by the rule of law, and Mwananchi as well just deciding to respect the rule of law, then we are home and dry. But if we still sit and hope and depend on individuals to chart the way forward, decide for us what is right and what is not good, without us seeing what is good and right, then we're not heading anywhere.
Sadly. And then the things that we hear coming out of, the public spaces over the last couple of days, whether you saw that a finance bill which led hundreds of thousands of people to the street and that ended up in the death of close to 100 people, that actually the same thing came back in 4 different bills, and this is coming from the leader of the majority, then you want to ask, who is being represented when you send people to parliament? Who's being represented? Is it the interests of those individuals, or is it actually the interests of Kenyans? When you hear something like that, and that it is said in public, unabashed, not shy at all, because at the end of the day, it's the attitude of what's going to be done. Who cares? I've said it. I don't know if we're supposed to be proud in that moment. They say, oh, yeah, these guys are so brilliant. What they've done is that they've taken the finance bill, which caused so much drama in the first place, and then we've, brought it back in 4 new bills. Were Kenyans supposed to be proud? Who was the audience here? Was there supposed to be a moment of applause when that was said? And would you then be surprised if met with angst from Kenyans at the point where they said, come on now, this is the thing that killed people. This is the thing that disappeared children, sons and daughters. This is the thing that people had to go to mortuaries to look for their kith and kin. And we are saying that actually, you know what? Well, we just took it and we split it into 4 and we reintroduced it back.
Yeah. It speaks of a leadership that thinks they're there to represent the executive and what it is they want, not a leadership that is there to represent the people and what the people want. Because in such matters, one would expect that members of parliament, leaders would have sat and audited that bill, look at where the problems were, and strive to do right and listen to what Kenyans wanted. Because if you look at the Kenyans getting out to oppose the Finance Bill 2024, what exactly were they doing? I take that to be one of the largest public participations that Kenya participated in to share their anger, to share their frustration to members of parliament after they felt they were not heard and listened to. So if you decide to go back and implement that which Kenyans have said no to, what exactly are you saying? Public participation is just a suggestion.
A suggestion, it really doesn't matter. Well, if we look into those situations that bring us to the point whereby, sadly, we have to think and look for good that has been done, then it's a bit difficult. Or if you say, well, at least there's a road that you can use, at least there's this. That's, I think, the danger of this problem, that you have people who are hurtling down a hill and you're not quite sure what's going to stop them from getting to a place of injury. And that if the desire is to be like nations of the world that have reached a certain level of democracy, then there are certain things that you should do. Or if the desire is to reimagine your own democracy, can we start to look at ways in which this is actually being done? You can't actually have fresh wine in old wineskins. You cannot do that. I'm not just necessarily talking about people. That you cannot forge ahead with an old way of doing things. Or historic way of doing things, which may have worked then if you only are trying to achieve here. But if you're trying to get to a higher level, then by golly, there are things that you must do. There are people that you must get rid of. There are things that cannot be negotiated when it comes to how you operate. And if we don't start to think in that direction, then we have a major problem.
Every other time we are told of how China is a model on how they changed their situation. We are told of Singapore and how they became a developed country. But we never pause to ask ourselves, what did they do for them to get here? Over the weekend, I was just listening and following up on China, and ever since they have 5-year plan, leadership after leadership after leadership, that they stick to that plan, But here, what is our plan in the next 5 years? Do you know that? Have Kenyans consumed that plan and are sticking to that? Has the leadership come up with that plan and they're sticking to it? Would one say that Vision 2030 is one that has been shared throughout the governments that are there? One would say no. It is just on paper. So therefore, as we talk about how we want to change our representation of people, how about we sit down, reimagine what it is we want, our vision, the places we want to be in the next few years, and stick to that plan without being derailed by personal ambitions and achievements that we want to leave behind there. Because at the end of the day, it is the legacy of a country, not a legacy of an individual. An individual might carry that legacy, but that legacy remains for a country.
Indeed. At this point, we're going to cross over to Nakuru, where Koigi Wawamwere is joining us in the Situation Room this morning, and we will have that conversation with him. So the Situation Room crosses over and goes towards counties, and as we do that, we'll be having a conversation with him. And so we'll cross over now and say a very good morning to Koigi. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
How are you doing?
I am doing fine and waiting for you.
Well, thank you for being so patient. Sometimes being able to connect with this technology gives us a bit of a challenge, but we've been able to do that now, and very glad that you were able to join us this morning.
I've lost my ear.
Have you lost your ear?
Hello?
Can you hear us? We can hear you. We can hear you well.
Now I can hear you, but
Fantastic.
But I have not heard what you said. You just said.
Well, I was saying that we can hear you well, but I know that there's a bit of a delay, but at least we can continue with our conversation. And we're very happy that you joined us in the room this morning, albeit in Nakuru.
Yes.
So, karibu sana.
I'm trying to follow.
No worries. Thank you for that.
To follow the debate.
So even as we have this conversation, yeah, please go ahead.
Yes. I was going to say that I agree with you that what the reason why we are lagging behind has to do with failure, our failure to make sure that we know what we want, and then proceed to achieve that at whatever cost. But every time I have thought about what we need to do, I keep getting back to a situation where the leaders and their interests are primary. I have not forgotten that the first crime that I was arrested and jailed for was having a book, being a book that most people might remember it. It is let me remember. The Art of War.
Yes.
By which is a very well-known book, but I was not allowed to read it, and for it I was locked up. Although the judge didn't seem to agree with the police who are prosecuting.
What was in this book?
Ever since.
What was in this book, Koigi, that would perhaps somebody have stopped you from reading publicly and that would essentially have thrown you in jail, which it did for 2 years? Why do you think that happened?
Because there was no freedom of expression. There was no freedom to read books. There was no freedom of thinking outside the thought pattern of leaders. And from there, after release, I know I stayed a long time struggling for the freedom of expression, freedom to read books, freedom to think.
Koigi, as we talk today about the freedoms, freedoms of democracy, freedom of expression that you fought for during your time, are you in a position to say that Kenya today has achieved these freedoms, that Kenyans today are able to express themselves better, that the democracy you fought for at the time is something that can be seen in the current Kenya?
I think the freedoms that I was fighting for have yet to be achieved in their fullness. Let me mention that before I started getting into problems with the Kenyan government, over the freedom of reading a book, I had been to the US and had enjoyed a lot of freedom of speech. Listening to people like Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and many other fighters for human rights and Democrats and rights of democracy. Yeah, so the freedoms after reading or listening to speeches by American Democrats, I developed a dream, which was the freedom to be in a free country, a country as free as US or as Europe and so forth. And I would say, though we have acquired some freedom that now allows me to share this discussion with you.
Yeah. Koigi, even as you say this,
the fact
as
is
you know,
that the majority.
Yeah. As you know, a week and 2 days ago, Raila Odinga passed on. You were in.
Yes.
You were in detention under torture around the same times that he was, for a lot of the same things that he was accused of. That you penned things as a journalist, that you fought for things as an activist, that you tried to entrench things even as a member of parliament. Those things that you fought for, those things that Raila Odinga fought for, did you feel that you were together in the trenches?
With Raila.
Were you fighting for the same things?
Because, yes, we were fighting for the same things. Because I know that for the 9 years that he was in politics, he was also in conflict with the authorities, and that is why he was detained. That's why he was imprisoned for a whole 9 years. 9 years in Kenyan prisons. And it is the same reason for which I was myself detained and imprisoned for 13 years. In fact, Raila was a very good example of torture suffered by those who wanted to bring about change. In fact, every time I saw Raila, I was reminded of the askari that hit him in the face with a wooden chair, trying to extract information from him. Mm-hmm. And for nearly 9 years, Raila carried his injury as a marker of as a mark of what legacy of torture. Mm. So Raila, therefore, I can say that he was a gallant fighter for democracy, for rights, and the other freedoms that go with the same struggle. Mm. So, yeah, I can say that we have, looking back at the 13 years, I can say for sure we are not where we started. Mm. Mm. But we are not where we wanted to go.
Koigi, when you talk about we are not where we started, but you're not where we ought to be at, just paint a picture of your aspirations as Koigi Wamuere and other democracy fighters at the time, and the aspirations that you had for the country that is Kenya. You've talked about imitating democracies like the United States, like Europe, but just paint a picture of what it is you see in the country today and how that can be fixed and what it is you agitated for at the time.
What we fought for at that time was more or less the same things that people are fighting for today. Mm-hmm. But the trouble is that we seem to accept what we have as something to live with. So the spirit of activism is less here in Kenya than it was in the US, or what it still is in the US. So I feel sad because 13 years is a very long time to stay in, to fight, to be fighting for the same rights without achieving them. Yet it is quite clear that people want to be as free as people are in socio-democratic in countries where people are free to express themselves and are not you don't have a government whose spirit is just to stop people from acquiring as much independence and as many rights as possible. So I will say that we have made some progress, but it is not such a freedom or such a dream that everybody feels we must have. So
yeah. I remember one of the things
we
that
have to.
Sorry, go ahead.
I beg your pardon.
I mean, I was going to say, even as you say that, I remember one of the things that you said. You said they can imprison my body, which they did for a very long time, off and on, but they can never imprison my conscience. And that there was the social justice that you fought for. And I remember watching videos where you said that you were going to cut off your dreadlocks if certain things happened. And as a sign of solidarity, or
specifically,
specifically, please, you can go ahead with that. Yeah,
it was specific. It was specifically until Moi was out of power. Then I would cut off my dreadlocks.
Yeah,
and it shocked me when I went for a ceremony of cutting off my dreadlocks, and I found over 300 people who were at the same place for the same
reason, ceremony.
Ceremony. So the fact is that we have people who are as determined as possible, but on the overall, we don't have a country that will die for its desire for freedom and rights, advanced economy, and generally the right to life. If we had people like of that caliber, I believe that we would move further in our march to Canaan.
Are you saying those people don't exist in Kenya today, Koigi?
I think they exist, but they are dormant. And I say so because I don't see any reason why people in Bangladesh or in Nepal should be able to have change by putting up a struggle that the Kenyans themselves can also put up. And I'm not saying that the struggle has got to be violent, but if need be, then let it be.
Koigi, you see,
you were going to say something.
Yeah, when you talk about the struggle of the country, and you've mentioned Nepal and Bangladesh and where it is, one is reminded of the situation that happened in Kenya in 2024 when Kenyans showed up to reject the finance bill. But that was followed by police brutality, disappearances of Kenyans. And one would argue that these are the things that you, together with other democracy fighters at the time, were fighting against, but that even in the current Kenya, these are things that continue to be seen. Now, when you talk about Raila Odinga and the person that you were together with, his death has seen Kenyans united, say on what he did. But do we embody the wishes that you, Raila Odinga, and others had in the struggle for democracy, some which we enjoy today through the Constitution 2010? Do we embody the vision that you had at the time?
Sometimes I have wondered whether we embody these rights and freedoms that we fought for 13 years ago. Because if we were as determined as we should be to achieve our rights and freedoms and the dreams, 13 years, for example, is such a long time that no freedom would be unachievable if pressured by our desire for freedom. I think there is some laxity, or even the unfortunate thing that I see happening, where people start. Hello.
Yes, we're here, Koigi.
I have. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
I was saying that 13 years is a long time for people to be fighting for democracy and not achieve it. And I was saying maybe it's because of our weakness to give in when we have a chance to get accommodated into the system, into the system that crushes our determination to be free. Sometimes it is because one of us has been given a job, money to buy a car, and many other personal things by which we are bribed and forced into giving up. Because one of the things that I have heard some people complain about Raila is the fact that he has been able to join the system in pursuit of self-interest. Something that cannot allow a country that engages in it and succeed in attaining the dream of freedom. So we have people like, I have also heard people compare Kenya with Singapore and wonder why Singapore was at the same level of development when we became independent. But as Singapore has advanced ahead of us, Kenya has continued to lag behind. Mainly because it has endured and allowed our government to sabotage our struggle without the necessary resistance to stop that sabotage of our struggle. So I think that we are not where Malaysia, China, Vietnam, in short, Asian economies, to catch up and even go beyond European economic development, and they are getting into the first world economically, politically, and even culturally. So I believe that if we have the will to be free, there is no reason why we cannot be free. And we have to make up our minds that we had better suffer detention, imprisonment, poverty, even resistance against corruption, and so forth. If we embraced the readiness, the readiness to suffer in order to be free, we shall be free. But not if we put front self-interest beyond collective beyond collective struggle and collective good, and which we must substitute with self-interest.
Koigi, I think it's interesting that you say these things in 2025 when you fought for these things 2015, 25 years ago. And it's interesting because today, the world is asking Kenya about its human rights record and is asking Kenya to answer some questions. The things that you fought for a while ago and also received global recognition for that struggle. Is it ironic that today those questions are being asked of Kenya, kind of like if people had just listened to Koigi then, perhaps those things would have been sorted out? Would you feel that way?
Can you ask the question again?
So today, Kenya is being asked to answer about its human rights record, its justice questions. This is the same thing that you fought for 20 years ago and were jailed for because you dared to ask questions. Is it strange that today, the same thing you are fighting for is being demanded of Kenya?
Yes, I think it is strange because those things are easy. They can be won. They can be attained because we need. If you look at other countries, the examples of which I had just given, they advanced themselves to the attainment of their entry into the first world, because they did not, once they started their struggle, they did not look back before they got what they believed was their right to attain. There is a story that is told on many forums about the difference between Singapore and Kenya. How Singapore was able to develop ahead of Kenya. And at one conference, the Prime Minister of Singapore asked, the Kenyan delegate to the conference asked the Kenyan asked the Singapore the question was asked the Prime Minister of Singapore by the Kenyan delegate.
Yes.
Something to the effect, what happened that Singapore was able to develop into the first world when Kenya, which was at the same level of development with Singapore, continues to lag at the same point at which Singapore once borrowed the economic plan that we needed to develop ourselves, and which Singapore had borrowed to go and compare themselves with. So if Singapore could develop ahead of us without even firing a shot. It means that we can, with determination, we can get where Singapore is, but we must surrender our madness for self-gain and corruption, negative ethnicity, and so many other sickening values.
Koigi, today, as a Kenyan
that
listens to
cannot
you,
allow any country to develop without giving them up.
Yeah, Koigi, today, as Kenyans are listening to you speak, after going through the trenches to see the country get the constitution that they have today, the democracy that you fought for, human rights, what would be the message to all Kenyans, including the leadership that there is today, in terms of we have not gotten there, but we can't get there if we do A, B, C, D? What are these things and aspirations that you'd want Kenyans to jump on to see that country and to grant you that gift that you fought for?
I think what we need to do is to, first of all, understand what we need to be able to propel ourselves forward. And the most important of our needs is the acquiring of the leader, acquiring the leader that we need, or who something that we know about, but pretend not to have that leader that can propel us forward. Let me tell a very small story about attending a meeting at Kinamba in Nyahururu.
Mm-hmm.
And I had attended a meeting together with Moi to attend a meeting, after which I was welcomed for a meal. And I thought that I should take the opportunity to ask Moi whether, having taken power from Kenyatta, whether he was prepared to be Joshua, who would then take the country to the promised land. And Moi refused to answer my question 3 times. But before I stopped asking the same question again and again, I asked him for the last time whether he was willing to be Joshua, and who would secure us out of the desert into the promised land, into Canaan. And Moi gave me his last answer. by warning me that if I kept on causing trouble among the sheep, that I would lie myself. I didn't take more seriously until after several years. In fact, until about I had been in for 10 years, and I remembered Moi's warning against me, waking up sheep before when we didn't have a Joshua.